order the planning board meeting of May 20th, 2025. Start with a roll call vote.
Recording in progress.
Jack,
Here.
Carrie,
Here.
John,
Here.
Nick,
Here.
and I am here. We're joined by Taylor Herman, town planner, Ian Sexton, assistant town planner, and we are on WinCam. And before we get into the business, I just like to go through the agenda. We are going to be continuing a public hearing on 10 Converse Place. From there, we will be moving into our business portion of our meeting. Any board or staff updates? We have minutes, excuse me, that you should all have received from May 6th. Then we have a series of development reviews for 4 different addresses. I will take those in order when the time comes, unless we have nobody for any particular one, in which case I'd do them out of order so we can get people who are here for any given one, but otherwise we'll just take them in order. We have an introduction to a topic, which is a discussion of the 40B in Washington and Swanton. We'll get to that when we get to that and explain more about that. Additional business, and then adjournment. So with that, we had continued our public hearing for 10 Converse Place, and I think I need a roll call vote to reopen the public hearing. Whether or not I need that, let's
Okay.
go.
Yeah, Brian, I just had a question. I mean, we're done with this. We voted. We're not changing anything. So I'm not sure that a hearing is the right name for this. I don't know if it's not technically a hearing. I mean, we're just discussing it.
So let's reopen the public hearing, and
Okay.
and then I think your point is well made, but we continued it to this date. So out of completeness, we need to reopen it and then decide.
Okay.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, but we should say that in the public hearing. So
Okay.
I'll take a roll call vote to reopen the public hearing. I'll start with you, Nick.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
Jack.
Aye.
And I, as chair, vote aye. So reopening the public hearing for 10 Converse Place, and we kept this public hearing open in case there was any additional discussion needed. I agree with you, Nick. At this point in time, there does not seem to be any need to keep the public hearing open. I will certainly welcome any comments or questions by the board, but seeing if there's nothing really on for us to discuss tonight, I would, after that, if no one has anything to say, I would welcome a motion to close the public hearing and move on to our business agenda. And if and when we have something more, we can post a new public hearing as needed. So
Sure.
if anyone has anything they want to add, I would welcome that. Otherwise, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
I would move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Nope. Seeing none, I will take a roll call vote. Jack.
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the public hearing is closed. Thank you for bearing with us for that completion, just to sort of dot our I's and cross our T's. So with that, we will move into the business portion of our meeting, starting with board and staff updates. Do any members of the board have any updates they want to share from any reason with the board? Carrie, yes, I see your hand.
Yeah,
raised.
the state of the town had its organizational opening meeting, and there will be several areas of inquiry that the state of the town addresses. The planning board is not assigned to chair or co-chair any particular area because we have kind of a mid-tier interest in 4 of the 6 areas. And so Taylor will be thrilled to know I will probably need to meet with him again soon. I'm sure he misses our tete-a-tetes. Brian, I'm sure you and I should meet soon to make sure that our information is ready. It's going to be a fast-moving group. But we will be touching on operating needs, which will cover things like our need for GIS and thoughts about eGov, capital needs and asset strategies. We touch on a few projects there. Of course, the schools occupy quite a bit of the interests in each of those two areas. The non-levy revenue areas, that will be with considerable input from the planning board, because that will be growth from new developments, and then structural costs and efficiencies. We have some interest there. We'll have less to do with tax design and fiscal stewardship, but I will keep you posted as we go forward. We haven't had any sort of subgroup meetings yet, but it's launched. It's exciting.
Thank you so much for stepping up to do this. Just as you step down from being chair, you step up for doing this, so appreciate it. Do you know if the meetings are recorded or if they're broadcast, or are they only available if you watch them in person?
They are sort of what do we call them? There are different kind of tiers of meetings that will happen. So they will be part of the they'll be noticed as full select board meetings. They will be in person, and I think they will be on WinCam and recorded, because our first one ended up being on Zoom because we couldn't get a room, and I think it was because it wouldn't be wired for that. And the subcommittee meetings will probably not be recorded.
Okay, so that's good to know, and I would encourage any members who want to attend either in person or remotely, just as members of the audience, to attend this. I was unable to attend the first meeting, so thank you for the update. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Any other board updates? I have none. So I would move on to staff updates. I don't know if Taylor, you or Ian have any updates that you want at this point in time, or if whether they would come later on in the additional business. It's up to you where you think any of those might fall.
And can you remind me if we discussed it earlier, if you want me to discuss Urplast now or later?
Why don't we do that later? We could do that during the additional business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a few things from me. One is there's a Rangeley Park Heritage District Commission member or open seat for the Rangeley Park Heritage District Commission. That member has to be a resident of Rangeley Park. We've reached out to the member whose seat is expiring. I haven't heard back from them yet, but they may still be interested in that. This is a position that is appointed by the board. I have already posted that position, and it needs to be filled by July 15th. So we'll receive any applications through June 15th. So if anyone knows of a resident of the Rangeley Park neighborhood who would be interested in joining that heritage district, please inform them to apply for the position. They only meet once or twice a year, so it's pretty light lift.
Who's currently on that board? And who's the one that's leaving? It's all right.
I can get you the list. I don't have it.
Yeah, okay. Because I know that we recently nominated or elected I think Ms. Dawson, and she's still on there, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Her term goes through
this is someone else.
26.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to reappoint a new person every year.
Okay.
Some years you have to reappoint two.
Okay.
And there's no term limits, so you can keep reappointing the same person as long as they're interested. Margaret Mack is the individual who is up for reappointment.
She's expressed interest in stepping down.
No, we haven't heard. We haven't heard from her.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
If no one steps up for that, then the seat just goes vacant until such time as somebody steps up.
I believe so. Yeah, okay. I'll make sure of that. But yes, I believe that would be the case.
Perfect. Thanks.
Just a notification to the board. There will be a special permit for the Main Street Mixed Use District at our following meeting for 972 Main Street. you'll receive the application and the planning department's report on that application maybe by the end of the end of this week, but if not, early next week. This will be the first project in the MSND, so it's just kind of exciting.
Great.
Very exciting. We're looking forward to this.
Yeah. And the last thing, just so that everyone knows, and I didn't get her permission to say this, but it's time. Suzanne, our clerk, is retiring. She's retiring in July. So we have about a month and a half, 2 months left with Suzanne. So we should all think about
Ugh.
what we want to do to celebrate her and to thank her. Her position has been filled, so I know who it's going to be, but I don't know if the paperwork hasn't been signed yet. So I'm not going to go too deep into it. But the person who is filling it is another clerk from another department. So we're going to be well served. But Suzanne is an integral part of, although she's totally behind the scenes and uh, she doesn't come to meetings, as is totally reasonable. She is a huge part of the planning department and the planning board. So we thank Suzanne, and we should plan something for her retirement.
So happy for her and so sad for us.
Yeah, she's incredible. That's a bummer. She's so sweet.
And she makes sure you guys get paid every week.
Yeah.
Without her, that wouldn't happen. So thank you for letting us know. And yes, we should definitely do something. Brainstorm. So we have a month and a half, roughly.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know what the final date is. It's sometime mid-July.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other staff updates? No. So seeing that, we'll move on to approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes that are from May 6th. They were sent out and then they were edited and they were sent out again, and then they were edited and they were sent out again, all just minor little things. So we should have a copy, and I would welcome a motion to approve the minutes as sent out.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, a roll call vote. I'm just going back and forth the way you are, so don't feel like I'm picking on any one person in any reason. Jack.
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The vote is unanimous. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Ian. Thank you for everyone for getting those minutes out. We've really been on top of them recently, and I appreciate that it's a team effort to get those minutes out, so that people can have them in a timely fashion. So I appreciate all the work behind the scenes that make those happen. With that, we will be moving on to the development reviews that we have tonight. We have 4 development reviews. The first one here is for Z25-10, which is for 176 Dothan Street. I don't know if that's Dothan or Dothan. It's for special permit approval for voluntary demo, site plan approval for gross floor area and grade change, and a variance approval for height and number of floors. Do we have members, petitioners? Are they present here tonight? And if they are, could they raise their hands? And excellent. So you will now be allowed to speak. And I would welcome you guys and let us have you tell us a little bit about the project and what you're looking for.
Thank you very much. My name is Wyatt Beal, and along with me tonight is my wife, Stacia Beal, and we currently reside at 176 Dothan Street, the site of discussion today. And also joining us tonight are 2 of our 3 architects on this project, Nat May, who's the principal of Aurora Architects in Medford, and as well as Cordelia Dawson, who's the lead architect on the project. We began researching this possibility several years ago, and now it is starting to come to fruition. And due to reasons beyond our control, there are some limitations on the site that require us to build higher than what is allowed by the town. And so therefore we are seeking some relief in the form of a variance. We also have to seek relief in the form of a special permit because of a non-conforming lot width, as well as undergo site plan review given the new construction.
Perfect.
And I take full responsibility for adding to that 4,000 page memo that you guys got as part of this meeting. So I apologize.
So I would let the members of the committee know that this starts on page 3 in the 2,495 page packet. You're on page 3, so that's not so bad. So if you could explain to us, maybe actually, Taylor, is it possible to get the packet, that page up on the screen and have you talk through what you're interested?
Which page did you
Let's
want?
start. Let's just start on page 3, which is where that begins, and then it would be helpful, Wyatt, if you could walk through some of the things you're going to do. I guess I don't know what would be the best thing for you to point out for us as far as I mean, we've all read the packet, but sort of highlight not just you highlight what you're going to be doing. I'm not sure what would be the best pages or figures to look at to describe that and describe why you're looking for approval for a variance and a special permit. So you let us know what the best is.
Brian, alternatively, you could let him or his architect present on their behalf too.
That would be delightful. I would love that. If you have
Sure.
your own,
I mean,
if you have your own presentation and slides, we would welcome that.
well, in brief, our lot is quite complicated in the sense that we have a very small area of buildable land, and that's further complicated by a high water table. Just to give you, and thanks for bringing up the site plan, just to give you an idea, this site is a non-conforming site with regard to width, as I've already explained. There is an existing 10-foot wide sewer easement on the north. There is the Arlington border on the south. There's, of course, the street on the west-hand side, and where our current building is currently placed too far close to the road. And then to the east, which is on the top of the screen, is a stormwater culvert that was installed in 2018 by the town because the stormwater management system infrastructure of the town in the property just to the north of us failed, and it resulted in a flood of their basement. So in addition to those 4 constraints on all sides of the property, we have an undesirably high water table, which limits the building footprint both horizontally as well as vertically. So our only option to build is constrained on 4 sides as well as in terms of depth. And in order to meet our objectives, both on a personal level as well as on an architectural level, we've proposed this design, which has been no small feat. We've worked more than 3 months just on trying to develop a design that would satisfy the constraints of the site while leaving the infrastructure open for maintenance as needed, as well as to avoid any administrative complexity that would potentially arise from involving Arlington should we want to or decide to build on that footprint. And we also aim to become the first passive house in Winchester and all of the surrounding towns to the best of our knowledge. And if there's any knowledge deficit with regard to what a passive house is, I'm happy to go into that further.
Thank you.
Wyatt, can I talk a
Please.
little bit about the impact of the water table on the design?
Please do.
Can I share the screen?
If you can share the screen, yes, we might have to unshare.
It says only one presenter can share, so I think, yeah, you have to, okay.
Thank you. And state your name. You already presented, but just state your name.
My name is Cordelia Dawson, and I am the project architect.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I have the drawings that are included in the packet here, so hopefully you can all see them. As Wyatt was saying, we have a number of site constraints, but in looking, at the site plan, so we have 100-foot wetland buffer that we've had verified within the past 6 months. But currently in this part of the site, the site slopes from Dawson Street towards the rear yard, from an elevation of around 216 down to 210. The existing house is within the front yard setback. So we are proposing to put the new house within the required setbacks, so shifting it back from the street. And given the nature of the project, we want to make sure we have a solid stormwater design. And in order to maintain our clearances from property lines, the street, and work with the narrow site, the best location for the stormwater design is in the rear of the property. Given the height of the water table, we need to have a certain vertical clearance above that water table to the bottom of the stormwater design. And so what's that forcing us to do is to elevate the rear of the yard by about 2 feet, from around 210 to 212. And so in doing that, we also want to make sure we have the required clearances of the building above the water table as well, and to get proper drainage into that stormwater system. And so we're essentially raising the grade a couple feet at the back of the house. Now, originally we had hoped to actually set the house down so that the ground floor was at elevation 210. But this was before we understood the clearance of the stormwater design requirement. So we've been forced to elevate it up 2 feet to meet that clearance. Additionally, that's giving us a clearance that is allowing us to stay well above the groundwater elevation. These diagrams, this is showing what's proposed for the building relative to the groundwater elevation. And this is showing a theoretical compliance section that is quite close and puts a lot of pressure and impact potential on that groundwater. And these were both included in the packet. Does that make sense? That constraint makes sense? Does anyone have any questions relative to that?
I understand it, but does anybody on the board have any questions regarding the groundwater or anything that
No.
No.
And you know, Wyatt and Stacia have the goal of being able to access this house as they age in place and use it for generations to come. And so it was also important that, you know, if we have the set garage elevation, that they be able to transfer into the house without having to go down many steps to get into a sunken basement. Because they do have the option of putting a lift on the stairs in the future to get up to the main floor. But once we start having many ups and downs just to get into the house, it creates a challenge for future accessibility. Likewise, that ground floor of the house, if we look at it programmatically, you know, in terms of number of stories, it's really just basically a pathway to get from the garage up into the main house. The majority of that ground level floor is mechanical and storage space with a little bit of mudroom storage, but it's not intended to be living space. We don't have any windows on over 2/3 of the space. And it is sunken into the ground quite a bit. So what you perceive from the front of the house, from the street view, which is this one right here, the new west elevation, is really a 2.5-story appearance.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board about the petition?
Well, the basement area. In reading the data you presented, that area, despite what it's used for, looked to me like it was counted as a story. In Winchester, and I think most communities around here, the midpoint elevation was above the average, the mean grade on the building. And we, generally can't, if we have a house that's built on a slab and they say, well, we're just going to put the mechanical stuff over here and say 700 feet of the first floor slab, we don't usually get to say, well, that won't be counted towards your, so we don't have to call this a story, or we don't have to count this towards our gross floor area. And that is, it's difficult for me to get past.
John, I think, what you're reading is, the pure literal definition of story as it's defined in the bylaw. And the other thing to take from this is the perceived activity from the house, because, part of that bylaw across, the town, but across the country in general, is limiting the number of stories in terms of how much impact it will have on the neighborhood. And so as a very transitional space that won't create noise or light for the neighbors to interact with, functionally, it is not a story. And if we could build it lower, we would have. But
well,
as we're faced with the increasing challenge of rising water tables, in New England, as has been studied, this is only going to become, greater seen problem across the town.
but my representation is what the code says. I know it sounds literal and it may be frustratingly so, but the definition of a story comes up frequently, and I'm certain your architects deal with this all the time. Winchester's is not unique. People are always, usually the variability between towns is finished grade versus existing grade. You can argue about what existing grade is, but I don't see the gray area here. And it's a large house. In reading what was written, it was as if, this is the only solution to a 4,700 square foot house.
That's not a 4,700 square foot house. The garage composes at least 1,000 of that. The footprint,
right, and in Winchester that counts. If you were building to a 3,600 foot standard, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but that is, if the garage space is on grade, it's going to be counted. If it's in the basement, it's such that the mean elevation is below the footprint elevation, yeah, it will not count. But that's an argument the town has had before, and this is what they've decided, that a garage counts.
And, the relief that we're seeking relates to all of the legal standards from which variances should be applied.
Yep.
And there's recent court precedent that was down in down on the Cape, that talked about, laws that basically, trumped in the petitioner's favor because of, existing requirements. And in this case, after we bought, many years after we bought the property, the town installed, infrastructure that now limits our buildable area.
Mm-hmm. I can see that things did change. The zoning changes. You're talking about further changes that perhaps should be made, but they haven't been made. We're not, I think, we're just advisory here. This looks like a ZBA issue, but
Certainly is.
this is it at this size, a 2-car garage and workshop.
3.
3-car, is it 2 or 3?
It's a 2-car garage and workshop.
Right.
It does have a garage door on that side, but the primary use will be as a workshop. It's
Right.
more of a,
And it,
a large door to get equipment
and
in.
I think, it's big.
You're currently parking on the side of the house. Is that where the?
There,
Right on the north
there's
side.
an existing driveway on the north side of the house, so we're proposing to extend the driveway from the existing curb cut down around the back. And trying to use as much pervious paving as possible. We've been informed by the engineering department that we cannot put pervious paving over the sewer easement. So that will have to remain impervious.
I always like to go to chapter 48, section 10, which sort of spells out where a variance is allowed. And literally it says, owing to circumstances related to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of such land or structures, especially affecting land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district which is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance or the bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. So I look at this and I tend, I don't know if John quite said this, but I tend to agree with something John, I read through the what I was hearing him say, that this is a solution to the issues involving the drainage, the topography of this land, but it's not the only one. It is a solution. First of all, it's 42 feet where 40 feet is allowed. Clearly, there would be a way to put a 40-foot tall house on this piece of land that would not, by being 40 instead of 42, would not be a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to do so. So just looking at that one number alone, I have a hard time reconciling that portion of it, because an argument could be made about other aspects of this lot, but 40 versus 42, and I read why it was 42 instead of 40, but that was to get the height of the house that you wanted, and obviously if you wanted a bigger house, it has to be taller. I'm not sure that's a compelling argument for why it has to be 42 instead of 40 feet. I struggle with that. So I welcome why it has to be 42 instead of 40 feet. And if you could make it 40 feet, how you would do so.
Yeah, part of this has to do with the amount of sunlight that the windows receive on the south side in order to give enough solar heat gain in the wintertime to achieve passive house certification.
Okay.
Additionally, the roof angles are such, we can, but one way to achieve a lower house is to adjust the roof slope. And right now, the south facing roof slope is at an angle to support photovoltaic panels and to maximize solar gain through that.
Okay.
And as I've described in the application, the bylaw dimensional requirements don't take into consideration the unique structural requirements of passive house design. So if the town wants to promote sustainability, if they want to promote renewable energy, if they want to move forward with meeting intergenerational housing, this is one way to do it.
You make some excellent points about the fact that everything that is approved or thought about is built on prior precedent, and taking a design that we're not kind of ready for and deciding to build a bylaw around that design would be irresponsible of us. But I do appreciate the sentiment that we're well aware, and we're trying to adapt to become a town that is forward thinking around climate change. But I think our most responsible position, instead of saying we're not ready for it, so let's just barrel towards climate change, would be to say we're not ready for it and this doesn't meet what we are ready for. Is there a way to put the workshop on top? I mean, there's a beautiful roof deck. The house is lovely. I think you guys are well-known, like great citizens of the town. I remember you offering your testing services during COVID. Like, this is nothing personal. This is just the planning board being the planning board, where this is just thoughts. But there must be a plan B. You must have looked at it you must have come up with a design that asks for lots of leniency from the town, and thought, okay, well, if it doesn't happen, what does a plan B look like? Can the studio be on top of the garage, even if you lose the roof deck, to pull it a little outside the wetland and to reduce the footprint? What can happen here?
Well, Harry, I first would respond to you. I'd say, if the planning board isn't ready, then this is the opportunity to get ready. And we
I've seen
need
what it
to.
takes to change zoning bylaws.
No, I know, but
You can do it, but you're gonna slow your project down.
it gets to the point of 40B that, this can be a substantial hardship, because the bylaw simply is not kept pace with town goals, right? The town of
Brownfield
Winchester has
is
established
40B,
Winchester
that's
2030,
wonderful.
as well as the climate action plan, with all these great, and laudable agendas. And we're proposing solutions. Now, if the town committees and boards can't adapt quickly enough to allow development to take place for its residents, then the residents should not bear that burden. Now, from a town planning perspective, what is the main concern about what we've presented in our packet?
I mean, the reasons you're before us today, you need a handful of
Well,
lenient.
I'm asking, what are the main concerns that you have from a town planning perspective?
The zoning bylaws have certain dimensional requirements, and those are spelled out in the zoning bylaw. And we can make recommendations to the ZBA, and we are certainly free to recommend that they give you a variance to override those dimensional requirements, be they the height, the number of floors, certainly site plan review approval, which is discretionary, but much lower hurdle, and then special permit review, which is lower hurdle but discretionary, and site plan review, which is not discretionary, but it would require just having us have this conversation that we're having. What I hear you saying is that the only solution to put a passive house on this lot is what you've proposed, and that and quite frankly, what you just said was, if we don't agree with that, then we're not supporting passive houses, we're not supporting, and we're behind the times. I hear you say that, but it's hard to hear that the only solution is the one that you've put forward at this height and these dimensions. That's just it's a difficult pill to hear you tell us that we have to swallow. This is the only solution for this lot.
right?
I think, I don't know that we really want to get kind of confrontational. It does appear from what people are saying is that there are certain zoning laws, and that I think what I'm hearing people react to is that this exceeds those, and so it's we have to go by what the zoning rules are.
As well as the criteria for which variances are permitted, as well as criteria for which special permits are permitted. If
Special permits, yeah.
well, both, right? The legal
Well,
criteria.
variances are very difficult to get. They tend to be restricted to a hardship that arises from ground conditions.
We do have ground conditions, right?
So that's
Structure.
A special permit I think is the way to go if you're gonna do this.
Do members of the committee have additional questions for the petitioners on this this petition? Remembering that we are just advisory to the ZBA. We will not be making this decision. We'll be giving them a recommendation, and they are free to take our recommendation or leave our recommendation, but they certainly will consider it. Are there any additional questions for the petitioners? Seeing none, I will welcome discussion among the board if they have any discussion about this proposal petition before us. Is there any discussion that anybody wants to have? Jack?
Yeah, I'm very I was taken aback by the 42-foot height, but as I perused the materials and listened to Mr. Beal tonight confirm what my impression was from going through the materials, I see that this is that they're really working within some real difficult constraints, and at the same time they're doing what I think is a really impressive sustainable house, and as he referred to it, also a multi-generational house that people can age in. I respect both of those points, and I think this is really a special place, and I can see that there's been a lot of love put into this design. I can't look past I can't look past that on and as Mr. Beal said, or as he implied, if I may, we can't be so rigid that we can't approve something that is really, as I say, constrained, but trying to do something really admirable. And I think that's why we're here. I think the law was written to guide us, of course, and we have to try to stay within it. But I don't think that this proposal is so blatantly overreaching and overarching that we can't say this is all right. I would support this this petition.
Thank you, Jack. John, Nick, Carrie, any discussion?
So what are I guess the argument against is that it's too much of a deviation from the zoning bylaw?
It would be up to you whether you believe that's the case. There's three things we're looking at. We're looking at site plan approval, we're looking at a variance approval, and we're looking at a special permit approval, all for different reasons. They are located on page 4 of our packet. Actually, if I could have you stop sharing, and then we can share our packet, page 4, which is the memo prepared by Ian of the various things that we're considering.
Oh, I see.
There, thank you very much. So,
if I could add one more point, and I know you're in discussion, but after, as built, the house will conform to the height requirement. Does everyone understand how?
Can you restate what you're saying there? Because I do not understand that.
Sure. So the way that building height is measured for purposes of new construction is to measure the building height as it's designed from the existing average grade. Once this building is constructed and the grades are adjusted because of the stormwater management mandates, the building height actually falls within the dimensional requirement within the bylaw.
Thank
So,
you.
I think what you're saying is the additional special permit is, changing the grade more than 6% over an area greater than 500 feet,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
And, once you change that grade, if you look at the mean grade around the building, take the mean grade,
That's
you'll
right.
be at what height?
I believe
Have
it's
they-
39 and a half or 38 and a half, Gordy? It's below 40. It's compliant.
Can the architect confirm that?
Actually, Wyatt, it's at 40 foot, 5 inches.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Calculated
I was,
it.
looking at the cross sections.
And the
mean, it's-
stories go from 2 to 4.
Say that again?
And the number of stories goes from 2.5, or we're allowed to do 2.5 in this area, and we're going to a 4-story home. Is that right?
You know, that I don't know how the building commissioner defined the proposed design as 4 stories. It's you know, you might make an argument that it's 3.5 stories.
Is that the
This-
basement question, John?
Yeah, I mean, there's
No,
not,
it's reflective of the dormer condition, which
well,
is
that the
causing
half, that it, I think, excuse me, I think that additional half story relates to the dormer. Right?
which I can't
That-
understand.
Okay. Well, setting that aside, I understand you kind of disagree about that. But the most conservative would be 3.5 stories. The building commissioner, I think you're indicating, feels that it's 4 stories.
Well, he is ambivalent. He says 3.5 to 4 stories.
Okay.
We don't really know.
Okay, setting that aside, that half story. It's 3.5 stories because the basement
Topography.
is counted as a story. Excuse me?
Topography. It's the topography that raises
Well,
that
that
lower
yeah,
level.
Brian,
right. You
could
can
we limit the
can-
discussion to the board unless we're directing questions to the architect or the applicant, please?
Sure.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Thank you for the
So-
reminder. Mr. Beal, I just
um
get asked a question, I would welcome an answer, but I just want to, only because we have several other petitions and I want to make sure we give everybody full time they deserve.
I understand. Thank you.
John, you were speaking. I didn't mean
anyway,
to.
so that is, the basement. I read the materials and I looked at the diagrams, and in any town I'm familiar with, in Metro Boston, they call that a story. You can always, pulling the foundation out of the ground, and there are a lot of good reasons to do it. And lots of places in Winchester where the water table is high, and this is a challenge. That's absolutely true. And the water table is kind of moves around a little bit sometimes. But it's a story. That is not a lot to talk about. I guess in reading through the submission under the summary of hardships, just quoting from it, importantly, the hardship does not arise from any voluntary design choice. I think there's a lot of voluntary design choice here. Lots of houses in Winchester don't have a two-car garage, particularly in that neighborhood. I'm not sure if their house has a garage now. The house is a lot. It's a lot of house. It's 4,700 feet.
It
And
does
it
meet
is,
a lot of the goals for Winchester. I appreciate their efforts to do a passive house, and I appreciate that the fact that if we are trying to move towards a town that accommodates live workspace and multi-generational families, that we may need to rethink our dimensional requirements, but setting a precedent that 2.5-story zones can have 3.5-story buildings, I think is dramatic.
I mean, for what it's worth, Winchester's building height of 40 feet is higher than a number of neighboring towns. Many are 35 feet. And they have similar ways of calculating that, although it does vary. That does vary. An extra story is not modest. That is, it's a lot.
If there is no additional discussion by the board,
Just one quick point, Brian.
yes.
I bring a bias to the planning board, which you will soon discover, and that is I'm very, very interested in what neighbors have to say. And I was very impressed at the number of positive comments, very erudite comments, well-informed comments by your neighbors, and the number of people who signed petitions. And I think that speaks volumes. If you've got a house that's going to be 40 feet high if I got a house next door to me that's 40 feet high, I'm going to freak out. But they weren't bothered by this, and I think that speaks volumes. That's all.
No, that's super helpful. I appreciate that. So we are here now. If anybody wants to wants to have more discussion among us, we can choose to make a motion. If no one is comfortable making a motion, we can choose to not make a motion. If no one wants to make a recommendation to the ZBA, I welcome one if somebody has something they would like to make.
So to clarify, are we making one motion? We're just recommending to the ZBA on the variance?
We are, Ian, I'd welcome your discussion here as well. There are 3 things that we're looking at. We're looking at special permit approval. We're looking at site plan approval based on the gross floor area and the grade change. I think the most, this is my bias or whatever, the most significant thing we're looking at here is the variance approval for both the height and the number of floors. So they're sort of more significant in my mind, but that's may not be in your mind. That may not be the case. So we could be recommending favorable or unfavorable action on the project as a whole. We could recommend favorable or unfavorable action on the special permit approval or the variance approval. And we could make recommendations to the ZBA on how this could be changed to be more palatable.
So the special permit approval is because the gross area is going to exceed the footprint. I sort of think we take them separately. Maybe.
I welcome that. Special permit is because it's a non-conforming demo, which is going to result in also a non-conforming structure. Ian, that's my understanding based on what I read and what you said. Is that correct?
Yes, and then the site plan is for the proposed 6% grade change over 500 square feet.
And the gross floor area as well, correct?
Correct. And then the variance for the height.
So
and the variance.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, was there a variance also for the story count? I assume?
Yes, I'm sorry, you're right. The variance and the story count per section for dimensional requirements.
So Carrie, we could take them all at once. We could do individual parts, and we could make recommendations on any part of it. It's up to you.
There might be.
I would recommend, if you don't mind, that you do this just like you do all other. You vote if you choose to, if it has adverse effects on the neighborhood or not, and then you can go deeper into that discussion of yes but, or yes and, or no but. So I would start with that. Does it have adverse effects? And then you can choose to dive into each one individually after that.
That's helpful. Thank you, Taylor.
I would make that motion. That
What would,
that the proposed project does not have any adverse effects on the neighborhood. Is that properly phrased?
uh,
So
Yes, that works.
You're essentially moving to recommend favorable action on the
Yes.
application.
so there's been a motion. Is there a second on that motion? Seeing none, the motion is withdrawn. And I would welcome another motion from anyone, if anyone wants to make a motion.
I'm having a lot of trouble coming up with a recommendation personally to the ZBA. But I just thought I'd share that. I mean, I'm hearing arguments from both sides that seem reasonable, and I'm finding it difficult.
I think that, I am fine with I think we need a special permit because it's a narrow lot. It's a voluntary demolition. I'm completely fine with that. The grade change, I'm fine with that. I understand that it's to my mind, it's not that significant, and it's in service to a good need. And maybe the actual square footage isn't such a problem for me. That's sort of the special permits. Those are the special permit issues, as I understand it. The variance issues are the parts I don't like so much. The story count and the height. So I have those organized correctly. Is that right, Brian?
I believe that's correct. Special permit is for the width and the non-conforming to non-conforming. Site plan review is for the gross floor area and the grade change. And the variance approval would be for the height and the number of floors exceeding what's required, what's allowed.
Right.
Is there a motion that you are willing to make?
I guess could we do it we move to recommend a special permit for the elevation changes, lot width, and floor area.
I think Taylor is suggesting that you would recommend unfavorable action, and we would make comments about how most of it's not a problem, but the variance was the factor. Right? Am I getting that right, Taylor?
Yes, that's my
I think
recommendation,
so.
to stay consistent with your ZBA recommendations of past.
I mean, we have the benefit of an excellent and thoughtful clerk, so we can send some pretty nuanced comments.
Good thing this is being taped.
Yeah.
So I don't want to propose a motion as chair.
You can request a specific motion.
I propose we recommend unfavorable action on the request for a variance from the applicant.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion that has been made?
Is this when we list our butts?
Um,
Or when would you like us to contextualize either, Brian?
we contextualize it right now so that when we vote, we understand what we're voting on.
Okay. I would say we have I personally have concerns about increasing the number of stories and violating the height requirements. But in general, the spirit of the project is very positive for the town, and the applicant has done a good and thoughtful job with it. And the site has its restrictions, but we're not sure this is the only way to solve these problems.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and those sort of discussion that was added by Carrie. Any additional sort of discussion on that? So I will call the vote. Jack,
Nay.
Carrie,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The vote is 4-1 in favor of the motion for unfavorable action on the variance. Are there any additional motions that anybody wants to make on this regarding special permit approval or site plan approval? Or do we think that that's been adequately captured in everything that Jack will include in the write-up? I'm happy to, we want to have an additional motion of some sort or additional limiting language that we want to add. Happy to include that, but I'm also happy to not.
It goes to Concom at some point, right? I mean, it's in the 100-foot buffer. Anything that would reduce the square foot area to move it out of the wetland would obviously be my preference. I don't know if we mentioned that somewhere.
It's not in the wetland.
It's been moved up.
It's in the 100-foot buffer.
Right.
That's the wetland.
Well, it's the wetland buffer. It's not in the wetlands.
I mean, it's not in a river, but it's in the wetland buffer.
It's in the wetland buffer. That's right.
So I think
Point out that there could potentially be 2 open seats, and we welcome thoughtful folks on the planning board. So please consider running and exerting positive change through
Don't
legislation.
say that, Carrie.
I will.
I don't want to hear that.
welcome it.
I said potentially.
Oh, potentially. Okay.
I think that thank you to petitioners. I do apologize that you didn't get the recommendation that I know you were hoping for. But good luck in your endeavors as you move on to the ZBA. And with that,
Well, may I ask a follow-up question if there's time?
regarding yes, let's you ask a follow-up question, but
So is there unfavorable action for the special permit and unfavorable action for the site plan review?
that was not specifically made in the motion. And so no recommendation was made on that specifically.
The
we're not-
unfavorable action was on the request for the variance. That's all we had,
Well,
Brian.
that's the only, we're not making a recommendation on the special permit or site plan approval. The only vote that was made was on the variance approval. And I asked the board, and the board did not choose to make a motion on the special permit approval or site plan approval. So at this point in time, there is no recommendation on that from this board.
Okay, and have all members of the board read the entirety of the application that was submitted?
Yes, we have. So with that, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next request, which is for Z25-11, which is for 10 Johnson Road. This is a special permit approval for a pre-existing non-conforming addition. This is for removing a deck and adding a screen porch. It begins on page 195 of your packet, which I'm going to takes a while to get to.
As you look for that, I'm going to say that I'm going to recuse myself from the vote on this for obvious reasons. But Brian has been gracious enough to say that I may make a brief presentation and answer questions.
Yes. So I'm going to treat you just like I treat anybody else, Jack. So welcome. If you could state your name and address for the committee and describe what you're looking to do, and give you the floor.
Thank you. This is pretty simple and straightforward. We have an existing deck that is moderately, slightly non-conforming, as it spells out there, and we are going to demolish it and build a screen porch on the same footprint with an additional 2 feet 8 inches, which further encroaches on the setback. And if you can scroll to the little bit further, keep going.
Page 198, perhaps.
It's the one that shows the little wedge, the little triangle.
Oh, well, my numbers are different than those numbers.
199 maybe?
199, maybe. It's got
Got
a
that
yellow,
yellow.
right there.
There it is. Okay, so you can see this right here. That area, that the green triangle is what is the existing non-conforming part of this deck. The red line is the 20-foot setback, and we are extending it there on the left side by 2 feet 8 inches. But otherwise it's on the same footprint. The funny thing is that when we dug up about 3 or 4 different older surveys of this property, and they all have that setback different. So Tom Kennedy insisted that we survey it again, and so this is accurate, and that's what we're asking for, is a special permit to build what, I don't know what the exact square footage, but that the widest part of that is just about 2 feet. And if you can let me have the screen, I'll show you some photographs just to give you some context for this, if I may. Here we go. This is a photograph I took today. This is on the existing deck looking, if you look at this map, it's looking up the hill, which is to the south. And up here is number 6 Johnson Road, way up high above the hill. If you're familiar with the site, there's a house up here on the hill. You can't see it. Then a different view is looking at the house at number 8 next door. You can sort of see it there in the yellow. It's a yellow house. And this is looking, I'm standing in front of the fence from the street, and you can sort of see the deck right there. And then this is looking down from the hill at the deck. So this is where the screen porch is going to go, right in here. It's going to follow this roof line, and it's going to be a hipped roof, and the door will be right where this is here. So that gives you a pretty good sense of what we're talking about here. I don't want to go on and on, but I think it's pretty simple. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Sorry, I was muted there. Thank you very much. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the petitioner regarding this proposal?
Will the resulting deck be sufficient to seat, say, 7 individuals
You took the words out of my mouth. I say
and a member of WinCam?
we'll have a party there in the fall. That's what you're implying.
If it happens, it happens. I will die trying for a planning board retreat.
That's why we wanted the extra 2 feet 8 inches.
Yeah. That's right.
This falls under 3.55, which says that we can do this via special permit because it's pre-existing non-conforming, and that it's essentially going straight back, and it's not it is increasing the non-conforming. It's not increasing the negative impact on, if we choose to vote yes, it's not increasing the negative impact on the neighborhood.
So you're basically saying instead of a deck, you're going to have a screen-in porch. And it's
That's
going to
right.
be marginally larger.
That's right.
Meaning in Arlington at one time, they would have just called us following the line of the building. It would not have.
Yeah, except we are going 2 feet, 2 feet, 8 inches further.
Right, yeah, but they until recently, the zoning was, if you had a building that was 2 feet into the setback and you wanted to extend the whole building, full width,
Oh, I see.
4 more feet, 8 more feet, follow the line of the building.
I see. I
It's,
got you.
So do
it's-
we need a lot of discussion on this, or are we more or less?
I would welcome a motion, and just go slowly because we have a retired clerk taking notes on this, who's actively come back to take notes on to submit this as a result of this. So just go slowly on any motion you make.
I move we take favorable action
For a reason,
for a reason.
because it doesn't because it doesn't increase
Because
the negative impact on the
it
neighborhood.
doesn't increase. Yes, it is
Mhm.
minor impact of it.
I second the motion.
Any additional discussion among the 4 non-recused members?
I don't.
No. Roll call vote. John,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nick.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The vote is unanimous, 4-0 with 1 recusal.
Thank you.
Good luck, Jack.
Thank you.
And with that, you are now back on the board, and you're back to being clerk again.
Okay. Thank you.
And so we'll move on to petition Z2512, which is for 53 Hutchinson Road. This is for special permit approval and variance approval for adding a sports court on, and it starts on, at least in my packet, on page 233. If the petitioners would raise their hand, and then they can be elevated, and I just need to get to the page in this packet, which I think I said 233. Is that correct? Sorry, I've got.
Yeah, Ian's memo is on 233.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, it's so many pages that I overshoot. I keep on overshooting it one way and then the other way. 233. Okay. And petitioners, Mark Vaughn, are you speaking on behalf of the petitioners tonight?
I am, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Excellent. Welcome. If
Great.
you would like to introduce yourself
Sure.
and walk us through this project.
Sure. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn, I'm here tonight on behalf of Tim and Stephanie Keefe, who are the owners of the property at 53 Hutchinson Road. I think Tim Keefe is participating as well. He's on his phone. But we also have Brian Tim, who's our civil engineer, if there's any engineering type question that comes up. But we are here for the property at 53 Hutchinson Road. And we are looking for approval in order to construct a sport court that would be in the rear yard of the existing home. The property, if you're familiar with Hutchinson, it's directly across from Winchester Country Club. My client is and his wife have 5 children, and they are looking to provide a sport court that would be kind of a paved surface in their backyard that they would utilize for their children for sport activities, as I'm sure you've seen these located elsewhere. So the building inspector, I can't say how these have been treated previously, but the current building inspector has interpreted this to be comparable to a tennis court. under section 4.41 of the bylaw, which would be allowable. However, there's setback requirements for it, where you would have to comply with the 20-foot setback requirement, although you can, because we're in the RDA zone, or alternatively, you could go to 10 feet with a special permit. And in this particular instance, Brian, I don't know if you could maybe bring up, or someone could bring up the plot plan. I was
Absolutely.
not you, Mr. Chairman, but
Is there a way I can also bring, I have the plot plan, but I added some color to make it easy to see as well as an aerial? I don't know if it's possible.
Oh, yes, if you have been elevated, you should have the ability to share. So
Sure.
give it a try, and if you don't, let us know, and then we will try again.
Sure, and I hesitate from taking over from Mark a little bit here. But as we're looking at it, you should be seeing the screen right now. That's an aerial image right now.
Yes, we do.
Just to kind of give you context of where we are. This is the golf course that Mark was referencing. The property is indeed the property. Can you see my mouse as well? Can everybody see my mouse?
yes,
We can.
Mark, sorry for taking over your presentation.
that's all right. It's
I'll
happened
hand it
before.
back over.
Yeah, if you could just bring up the plot plan, I think it would be helpful. I could.
Sure.
Yeah.
I will in a sec. This is the property here. As what you'll see is Mark's talking about the neighboring property here is very wooded, and there is I think Arlington in the back here, but this location right here in the already cleared areas where we're talking about doing the plan. So can you see also my plot plan right now that's colored?
Cannot see it yet. We
No.
only see
All right,
the
so
web
I have
page.
to switch the share here. Sorry, I apologize.
Oh,
Wait,
not at all.
the adjacent lot is wooded, but is it a residential property?
It is. It's a residential property. Yes, I
Okay.
think that the home is located closer to the street.
Okay.
So I apologize on this. I kind of showed you guys, everybody, kind of a 180 version of this. You're probably looking at the plot plan right now, correct?
Yes, we are.
And I just moved that's the property line.
Okay.
So the golf course is on the top of the screen here, and it's inverted 180 degrees from what I was just kind of showing you from a context perspective. The left side, the dark, is the wooded area that you saw kind of off to the left side of this. Mark, I'm going to flip it back to you, but
Right, great. So
I'll try to drive according to your presentation.
yeah, no. So the reason I wanted to show you the plot plan is that in the context of where we are looking to locate the sport court, I hope you can appreciate that it's really limited in terms of where we could place it. And speaking to some of the variance criteria which were talked about before, the shape of this lot is somewhat unique in that it does come back to a sharp angle in the rear. So the widest part of the lot is where we're looking to actually have the court located. And also to the extent that, you look at the criteria for variance, it speaks to shape of land, soil conditions, but also it references structures. And right behind the home, there's a existing patio along with a couple of retaining walls that are there as well. So our ability to locate that sport court more central, if you would, to the lot would impact those existing retaining walls. And there's also some grading issues that are there as well. So it is, again, it's a recreation. It's not a building or a structure. I want to make that clear. It's a little bit unique, I think, in terms of what the board is probably familiar with seeing. And to be honest with you, I have a feeling that perhaps under prior regimes, these were looked at as long as you satisfied the hardscape percentage of the overall lot. I don't think that there was a lot of focus on these, and they are, I know there's a number of them throughout town. And we do satisfy the hardscape percentage here, so that's not in question at all. And so also I was listening intently to some of the other discussion, and I think in this particular instance, in terms of any adverse impact, I would submit to you respectfully that I don't believe there would be any adverse impact in the context of, you know, if this area were being utilized as a playground or a trampoline or just an area where kids were playing, soccer or whatever else. It's the same type of activity or impact, if you would, than having it be a paved surface where the children would be able to play basketball and try to perfect their shot from the 3-point arc. But so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any comments. I know Brian has designed this to be compliant with the stormwater requirements in terms of making sure any additional is properly addressed. So,
Yeah, I just jump in really quick. I don't want to bore everybody, the
Thank
commission
you.
at this hour with
Oh.
engineering.
Absolutely.
So what you see, there's a lot of lines on here, and I just try to do it from a graphics perspective. The blue area is what Mark is referring to as the court that we're proposing to construct. It's in an existing grassed area that's already up in that location. It's fairly flat. I believe there is already a trampoline in that area. It's where the kids play a lot right now. So you see all these lines here, and it looks overwhelming, like what is going on there. That's just underground infiltration system. What we're going to do is capture all the runoff from this and put it back into the ground. As Mark did mention, I'm going to zoom up really close here. This is a bluestone patio essentially that's built into the property. These are a series of retaining walls that are probably 3 feet tall in each, and they come up to a backyard that's right around elevation 251. They're down here at 245, so that is the 2-3 foot high walls. And like Mark mentioned, we looked at a bunch of different options trying to fit this in and impact the neighbors as little as possible.
So those walls are existing, right?
So
they exist today.
Yeah.
We actually have a
Right,
photo.
right.
Yeah.
do you want me to
Yeah,
bring
that's
that
all.
photographs up, Mark? Do you think that would help?
It's up to the board. We did submit for the packet to the ZBA, Mr. Chairman, and through you to Mr. Cortez, a photo showing the rear yard, but those walls do exist today. I'm happy to bring that up if you'd like to see it.
We do have them. If John wants to see them, happy to go to them. I believe though, just the retaining wall around the sport court would be new though, correct?
Correct. There's when we say retaining wall, at the highest, it's less than 4 feet, right? Because that's structural.
So it's not structural, yeah.
It's probably 2.5 feet tall. This is the highest point here. What it is, it's the backyard is slightly sloped. A sports court is flat. So we want to make sure that that's all that it's there for. We don't want to impact. I'll be honest, I try to raise this up a little bit to make sure that we were not hammering into any type of ledge or anything like that to impact the neighbors as well. There is an additional cost to build retaining walls and what have you. So that was the intention of raising it slightly to try
John,
to.
do you want to see a picture of that? Are you
Oh,
interested?
no. I just wanted to mostly to
Yep.
clarify our thinking that those walls, that's an existing thing. That's not really something we're deciding tonight. That's all.
And one important point too, Mark may not have mentioned, we are proposing to put a nice evergreen or some sort of plantings in the back as well to screen this from any abutting neighbors in the rear. That's what the dark green represents is more of a heavy screening. The light green is more of a grass area.
Are there questions from the committee? I see Jack has his face, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I've got a few questions. So if you're talking about screening in the back, I saw in the photographs of the backyard that there are 2 trees which are indicated there, and then there's another one in the fence line to the left there, and I assume that we're losing all 3 of those trees?
Correct. They're kind of what I call telephone pole type of trees. There's no leaves or even type of canopy until 30, 40, 50 feet up. So yes, those are the ones we're taking down, but we are going to propose to put in some more coniferous type of trees in that location.
You have two abutters on the rear in Arlington at 19 and 15 Apache Trail, and I didn't see any indication that they had provided any feedback on this project. And have they been brought into this?
If I could speak to that, Jack, they were notified of the hearing that we have coming up for the ZBA. So we're required to not only notify all the butters within 300 feet in the town of Winchester, but also in the town of Arlington as well, since we do abut the town of Arlington. So I don't think that we've heard anything negative or positive, but certainly they'll have an opportunity to speak at the ZBA hearing because they'll have notice of that.
Will this court have lights?
I think there would be one light proposed from what I understand, Brian, is that correct?
I'm gonna have to punt that to Tim. Tim, are you available to answer that one?
I am, yes. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, so it would be basically a light that right now is proposed to be actually attached to the top of the hoop. So it's like a secondary light. It's a plug-in. It's almost like an accessory to the hoop itself. There'd be no, electrical or anything.
So there's night play out here.
As there currently is now, yeah. My kids range from 12 down to 4, 12, 10, 8, 6, and 4. So we're out there sometimes till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. There's a trampoline, a yard. They play soccer. They sometimes wrestle and fight, but they do what kids do. So yeah, there's a light now off of the home, a spotlight that does shine to the backyard. It would just be an additional accessory light that would go over the hoop itself.
Okay, I'm just asking because I'm concerned about light infringing on the neighbor's privacy. But if that
there'd be nothing shining, nothing additional shining towards any neighbor. Any light would be, facing from the wooded area, onto the court itself.
And last question, the sample court that was included in the packet included what looked like about a 10 or 12 foot high chain link fence. Do you anticipate doing that on this project as well?
I don't think around a portion of this, yes, I would. We're kind of showing it. I'm trying to zoom in there. Everybody see the kind of the zoom.
Yeah.
There's a straight line here with a circle. That's the line type in AutoCAD that distinguishes the fence. We do, knowing balls are going to be bouncing around up here, and we do have quite a slope heading down here. From a safety perspective, we don't want the ball to be going down the hill. This continues all the way down to Hutchinson Road, as well as the neighbor's property. We don't want, I'll tell Tim, don't encourage the 3-point shooters there. Let's
They're
get
not
down
great
low.
shooters.
And it's just to keep that safe as well. The back of the property is actually higher, Mr. LeManger. So it just keeps going up this way. So, we still do put the fence here to keep the ball from bouncing into the landscaping. But the topography in the neighbor's property continues to go up. And if I may, on the lighting, I don't know if we can put some specifications in that, Tim, that it's going to shine, we can agree that it's going to shine on your property and it's not going to spill onto the neighbor's property as well.
Absolutely.
And that fence is going to be how tall?
It's more netting.
10 and 12?
I don't think it's 12 feet. I believe it is 10 feet, but
yeah, a basketball hoop is 10 feet. So
yeah.
Right. Oh, okay.
And
No,
it's
no further questions.
Thank you, Jack. Carrie, John, Nick, any questions from you guys?
I mean, no particular question, but this is 2 feet off the side setback. I know it's wooded now, but it's a private residence and they're entitled to build hopefully they don't take down the canopy, but it's supposed to be 20 feet. I know it can be 10 by special permit, but that's a That's zero, that's almost no setback at all from the side yard. Again, we always think about what precedent are we setting, and that's a very aggressive precedent to set. I mean, I get it. They're great. We've got a hard top and we definitely use it, but that is no setback.
Yeah, if I could maybe speak to that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the comment on that. I do recognize that it is 2 feet from the property line. It is a wooded area back there. I mean, I can't say never, but I mean, there's already a home that's on the property today. You know, I think it does have a nice buffer there. And again, I think that when you look at the shape of the lot in terms of, you know, how we could place this, it would be difficult to place this in another manner. And I guess I would just ask you to really consider the fact that is there, you know, more of an impact from it being 2 feet as opposed to, you know, from the, if kids are playing there, if it's grass or, you know, a hardscape, or, you know, people are putting in a, you know, a hockey rink during the winter months or whatever, I think it's similar in terms of what the impact might be. So,
Thank you.
I suppose that, you know, as much as I hate fences, I mean, people do put fences on the edge of the property line.
What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I mean, this would be this. I mean, if you were to put a fence around the property, which you're allowed to do, it wouldn't be that much different.
Yeah, but the neighbor could put an ADU in their wooded area and they've got a basketball court 2 feet from their property line. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I'm not
Yeah,
saying it's a deal
that's true.
breaker. I'm just saying, are we allowed all over town, 2 feet off the property?
Right.
I mean, I don't see these as you know, that distinct from patios, you know, which if these were pavers and it was a patio, you know, you can pretty much do that without a setback. And they don't, you know, the other way I look at these things is that the history of them is that the reality is this isn't a building that's going to stay there for 40, 50, 60 years. The reality is that these tend to disappear with the kids. They get older and
They become pickleball courts.
yeah, well, that's new, but you know, they tend to, you know, do something else with the, you know, with the land, you know. You know, they take upkeep and it kind of what, you know, this is like a 15-year thing, kind of. You know, they don't. It's not a building.
Not a building. Point taken.
You know, it's a long way from building. You know, it's so.
So I have a question. My guess is for you, Brian. Is there a reason why the sport court needs to be those dimensions? Forgive my ignorance on basketball, football, any other. Is there a reason it couldn't be 8 feet narrower?
Oh, Brian, I'm Brian. I am if you saw me in person, you would know why that's a funny question. I'm 6.5 feet tall. I love basketball. So, is there a reason?
Is it a half court? What is the
It
size?
it is a half court. So
I think if you look at that representative photo that we included, I think it does kind of show it's a half. It shows the 3-point arc.
yes. So
And
the basketball hoop is where my mouse is right here. And the key is in, I wish I could draw it here, is in this location, but it's essentially as minimal as it can be for a half court basketball. It's not, I don't think you're going to be worried about having anybody like down at the high school, where they're running up and down the court all night playing 5-on-5 basketball or 3-on-3, anything like that, going back and forth. It's a half court basketball. Growing up, that doesn't last for a long time. It's it's for what practicing and having fun with your friends. It's not a stay all night type of thing or stay all day type of thing.
Okay, so that's helpful. My second question would be, if this sport court were rotated 90 degrees, would it not fit there behind the retaining wall and fit without infringing on the setbacks, or at least the 10-foot setback? If we took that sport court, turned it maybe
Yep.
80 degrees and lined it up with the back property line and put it back there. Other than that, I presume the homeowners would rather not look out into their backyard at the sport court. But as far as following all of these required setbacks, would it not at least follow the special permit setbacks option as opposed to requiring a variance?
So we did look at various options, turning it 90 degrees, turning it 45 degrees, every single thing, and also trying to respect the existing vegetation that's in the back and respect the 10-foot setbacks from either side. And if you look at the orientation, the only impact we're having is very, very minimal on that existing retaining wall. When you turn it 45 degrees, when you turn it 90 degrees, it starts impacting a majority of this wall. You're starting to then rebuild that wall and create a lot more disturbance in construction and what have you. So
It's also where the existing stairs come up from that patio as well.
exactly, that's a good point. So this is a patio down at 245. So you walk up into this fairly level backyard that's a grass backyard. When you turn it 45 degrees, you're going to end up walking up those stairs and ending up right in the court. I really fear if you did something like that, you would end up creating more disturbance elsewhere on the site as well, because you're trying to make up for open space as well.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm just struggling with what is would be most pleasant for this particular homeowner and what's best for the neighboring properties, because obviously, putting it as far the back corner away from their house is obviously preferable to the homeowner, but it's less advantageous for the neighboring property. So I'm thinking of that in my head. So that's why I asked that question. Sort of what are the alternatives to not needing to request a variance? Because as you know, the variance is a high bar to get, and we are just advisory. You're going to go to the ZBA, and they're going to ask a lot of tougher questions than we are.
Sure. And Brian, if you can imagine taking this rectangle and if we held this corner still and we try to rotate it around that corner, this left corner ends up coming into that property. So then we have to shift it back over that property, and it becomes a balance of who we're impacting. The bottom left corner ends up becoming closer to this neighbor. We went through months of trying to figure out where to put this and impact the neighbors to the least of our ability. I also believe Tim has reached out to the various neighbors, the owner, and I don't know if he wants to speak to that at all, but I don't know that he had much feedback.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
No.
We can close it to just discussion on the board.
Okay.
If there are no more questions of the petitioners, if we want discussion, if anybody has anything else that they want clarified, or if anybody wants to make a motion.
Just a quick question. The adjacent property to the left, I just looked it up. That property is 107,000 square feet. That lot is. While the applicant's Mr. Keefe's lot is 15,000 square feet. I walk by there on occasion, and I may be wrong, but that area next to your house almost looks like a wetland. Is it wetland?
We're not aware of any off of our property, Jack.
Over there to the left,
yeah.
that big vacant area.
not aware of any wetland jurisdictional area there that's off our property. And Brian, I think you would look at that as well, just to see if it was on any type of map or.
I did. I looked at the GIS. It doesn't identify it as any type of wetland area. In fact, the contours on the GIS indicate that it continues to slope in a, I don't know, from a right to left slope. And if there were wetland, the lowest area would be way like more
Right.
than 100 feet away from us.
Okay, thanks. It's very lush and dense in
Oh,
there.
of course. Yep.
Nick, John, Carrie, any additional thoughts, discussion? If there are no more questions, we'll close it just to us talking among ourselves. And I would welcome a motion if anybody has something that they would like to make a motion.
It's
Um,
If board members feel uncomfortable making a motion, I mean, we're not required to do so. This is obviously a tough situation. Again, another variance, which are sort of complicated by nature.
Right. We're not required to make any kind of recommendation to the ZBA, are we?
We are not required to do so. We are welcome to do so, and it's sort of we should if we are able to do so. And we recommended no opinion in the past, I believe.
I would make a motion to recommend favorable action that we don't think it will have a negative impact on the neighbors or the community there.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for favorable action based on, say again, why, or did you not say? Sorry, my internet went in and out for a second.
I don't think it will have a negative impact on the neighborhood.
Okay.
It is a very large lot to the side there. It sounds like it is very unlikely to see any development given the topography in any near future, 20 years. I mean, this court is not going to be there in 20 years. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. I don't see it getting resurfaced. It's not a building,
So we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion by the board?
I will take we can wait for the vote for me to make this comment if you want me to, but I will take the dissenting position because if the neighbors choose to build on that back corner, I think a hard top play surface close this far inside the setback could affect their right to quiet enjoyment. But I waited until someone made a favorable motion because I'm not going to die on the hill, but I would like to make the comment.
Okay. Seeing no additional discussion, take a roll call vote. Just to restate, this is a recommendation for favorable action on the variance. John?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Carrie?
No.
Nick?
Yes.
The chair votes no. So the recommendation is favorable by a vote of 3-2. And thank you very much. And good luck on your next move to the ZBA. And
I think that's fair to the applicant and responsible of the board.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to our last ZBA petition, Z2513, which is on page 318, 71 Yale Street. It is a special permit request to put a second story on top of a garage. I don't know if we have the petitioners here tonight. We do right there. Sorry, right directly in the middle of the screen. So, David, if we can, you should be able to unmute yourself. And if we could get, if you have your own slides, we're welcome to present those. And if not, we can pull up, I believe it's on page 318 of our packet. So it's up to you whether you have your own slides you'd like to present, or would you like us to pull something up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll reference the ones you have, and I can add to those if the conversation leads us in that direction.
Perfect, thank you.
But my name is David Ott. My wife Sabrina and I reside at 71 Yale Street, where we've lived for the past roughly 13 years. This has been a long-term renovation plan for us over time. And what we're here to talk about today are two considerations. The property is currently non-conforming due to a previously approved special permit, which occurred in 1997, to extend the width of the garage to roughly 10.5 feet versus a required setback of 15. So this is on the right side of the property. The second consideration is to increase the size of a dormer off the third floor, greater than 50% of that roof line. Now, when we think about the first part of that, there is currently a bedroom over that garage right now. The majority of that space is fairly unusable due to a steep roof line. So I would say at least 50% of the square footage of that area is lost. Currently, what we're seeking to do is to increase the roof height. So we are able to use the entirety of that space. And it is going up vertically for about, I think it's about 5 feet, and then a pitched roof. The second part of the equation with the dormer off the third story, similarly, that space is currently unusable right now, and we are looking to make that more usable space with a bedroom and a loft area in that space. The dormer off the back not only provides more usable space and headroom in that area, but both that dormer as well as the new roof line of the garage will be used for solar energy as we're seeking to have a very efficient house. I think that's it for the overview, but happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. If we could just, before we move to the board, move to one of the exterior images of, I'm not sure which one the best one is. Yeah, that one works right there. I'm just trying to, I read through these all, but I'm trying to understand exactly, if you could look on this figure, the garage extension upward is directly on top of the garage, and the dormer is in the back left. Is that correct? Or where's the dormer?
Yeah, the third floor dormer is off sort of the main house, off the back of that house. So it's not visible from the front.
Okay, so in this image right here, it would be, where would it be in this image? Or is there a better image in your submission packet that would help the committee see sort of in sort of one image?
Yeah, in the same image, that's a little tricky.
Whatever image you think is best. I just wanted to have something to all talk about.
All of the elevations, they're showing us page 328 in my number, which might be a couple up of yours. Keep going, right there. Yeah.
Okay, this is the one, and I was having a hard time telling what was existing condition and what was proposed.
Sure. So I can get you the existing condition.
That's okay. No, this is fine. You just point out what is.
Yeah. So the house over the years prior to our purchase has undergone several piecemeal renovations. And so if you look at particularly maybe the right elevation, you see off the back of the house, there is a very flat roof. And so this is all the way to the back on the right. The lower roof line that slopes back is an existing very flat roof. Similarly, on the rear elevation, you can see there's a central peak off the back, which is a kitchen for us. Similarly, a very flat roof. And what are the objectives of this renovation is to try and tie a number of these facets together to make them, a little more seamless and frankly, more appealing visually.
Okay. Thank you. So let's stay on this image unless other committee members want to see different things. And then I'll move to the committee and see if they have any questions about what's being proposed, either the petitioner or just discussion among themselves. I'm not hearing any questions or discussion. Is there anybody, does that mean that somebody's willing to make a motion? Maybe my internet isn't working well. I hear neither motions nor discussion. I welcome motions or discussion of any sort, or even just somebody speaking so I know that my speaker is working.
I'll just laugh.
Thank you. That works. So I guess I will say that I find that the changes proposed do not have increased negative impact on the neighborhood. So I, as chair, even though I will not make a motion, would recommend favorable action on these changes. But I can't make that motion. Well, I can, but I'm not going to. Hopefully someone else will.
It does feel like an improvement of the old existing house.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an improvement. I think that the changes are modest. It will not harm the neighborhood. It'll be an improvement. Looks like a good idea.
Well, I will move to recommend favorable action because it does not have it does not negatively impact the neighborhood. Am I phrasing that right?
That works. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion before I call the vote?
I would concur with what John said.
Yes, as would I. So let's do a roll call vote. Let's start with you, Nick.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
Jack.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. The vote is unanimous. Thank you for coming tonight. Good luck in your endeavors going before the ZBA. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
With that, we have finished the 4 ZBA petitions before us tonight. So we move on to the next item in our agenda, which is listed as topics. And that would be a discussion, a kickoff by Taylor of the next ZBA Z25 40B-1, which is the 40B on Washington and Swanton. And I believe that makes up the better part of over 2,000 pages in our packet is on the ZBA petition. I'll turn it over to Taylor, and I'll just mention before I do that the ZBA is starting their review tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and that will be a meeting that's held in person, and it will not be broadcast. And I will not be able to attend if anybody's able to attend that.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Just to refresh my memory, Washington Swanton, I don't recall that being a 40B. I thought that was just a regular development.
I'm going to turn it over to Taylor, who can kick that off, and maybe we can get an answer to that, and maybe we can't. I will say I have that question to the chair of the.
I mean, I thought it was going to be market rate affordable.
Let's turn over to Taylor and see what he can kick off with that, and then we'll come back and see, because we are not doing a full review of this tonight. It's just sort of our kickoff, is my understanding.
Yeah, so it is definitely a 40B. It has been submitted as 40B, and there are market rate units, but the development as proposed and as agreed upon with the select board and with the town, it is to be built under and permitted under 40B.
Okay.
So this was the application came out. I can't remember if it was last Tuesday or the Tuesday before. It doesn't matter. It's recently. Now the way 40B works in Massachusetts is it's a ZBA decision, and in Winchester the planning board has similar authority with 40Bs as they do with any other ZBA petition. So the planning board is advisory to the ZBA. Now this project is obviously much larger than a addition to a deck. So um, I kind of implore the planning board to have a serious discussion with the ZBA about how the planning board should be involved, because it's ultimately going to be up to the planning board and the ZBA to work together to decide how and what this project should look like. Something to remember about the project is that this did start by the town issuing an RFP, a developer being chosen through a full RFP process, and in that process there were some specific guidelines that need to stay within. Footprint was not necessarily rigidly set, but it was discussed. Number of units, affordability requirements, parking, size. All of this was part of the RFP and decision process. So I would say that we're fairly limited in what can be changed at this point, but we need to make sure that this project is a good project for the greater community. I don't recommend us diving too deep into it now because it's going to evolve and it's going to change over time. But we should make sure that we stay on top of it and listen to the ZBA and what's happening. One action item for tonight should be the ZBA is asking the planning board if they would like to hire a design consultant. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that a design consultant will be hired, but it is a request from the ZBA asking the planning board if the planning board would be interested in hiring a design consultant. I will say from a administrative position, I think changing the design is going to be rather difficult because a lot of the design is mandated in the agreement that was already made. But that's a determination that I'll let the ZBA to make. So if we can come out with anything here is I would like to know if you want a design consultant on the project or
I mean,
not.
I know that we had seen a rendition of the building and it looked good. It seemed like it fit into the neighborhood pretty well. I mean, we might want to look at that and have this scheduled on our next meeting so we have some time to think about it. I guess that, I mean, what kind of a design consultant are they looking to hire, and what are they? I mean, just to kind of keep the developer's feet to the fire in terms of in terms of picking or doing a good job on the design.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I can't really say, in all honesty, I know exactly why the ZBA is asking. The planning board is the only of the planning board basically has jurisdiction over the design. So I think that is why they are asking. But I can't say in full confidence that I know exactly what authority the planning board has over the design.
What was do you know the process for Waterfield? That was more, we had more hands on that project, but
Yeah, because that wasn't a 40B.
right.
So it was fully permitted through the planning board.
I mean, if we have control over the design consultant, maybe it's not a bad idea. But I don't know what their objective is. I mean, I know that designs change, and I looking at the initial, we probably should be able to look at the initial drawing at a future meeting and discuss it.
For sanctuary, was there one for sanctuary? The Cambridge Street and River Street?
The design consultant?
Do you remember?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Not a lot of institutional
I don't know
knowledge
either.
in this room.
Yeah.
You know what? We need Dia back. Or Sally or I Ching or somebody. Let's find out how that was guided because it would be good to know what we've done in the past, or if design review wants to see one. Do they need that answer for their next meeting?
Yes.
I'd like
But they-
I'd like to know if design review would like to have one. If they need it,
Share it.
who has jurisdiction over the hiring of them?
That's a great
Us?
question. I think I know. I think it's the ZBA. I think I think the planning board says that they want one, and then the ZBA hires them.
I have the packet is killing. I'm on my old laptop because Graham's got my new one. But if somebody wants to put it on the screen, I think the rendering's on page 415.
There, I got it.
One thing that would be helpful, not to go ahead of just what you just going to the packet killing us. I feel like this project in particular, which is over 2,000 pages, needs to have some sort of smaller, bite-sized sub packets because it was impossible to sort of digest anything about this. Granted, we're just to kick off tonight, but it was hard to find anything in it, a 2,000 page document. So just it'll be helpful as we move forward if we could have sub packets on this one somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
teaching opportunity for us.
And that circle back to the design consultant. I assume the developer would pay.
Well, yeah, but that's if. I mean, like I mentioned, I still question how that design consultant can even what ability that a design consultant even has to change the project, because the project was designed through the RFP process. So to complete the RFP process and then come to the permitting stage and say we're going to change the design, that sounds strange to me. I'm not saying it's impossible or wrong or anything. It's just that sounds strange to me.
So one thing that we always look for in our projects is unified massing, and this looks a little bit like a stack of Legos. You're saying if we say that to them, can we think about making the balconies continuous? Can we come up with a roof line that isn't 4 separate pieces? You're saying there's no room to move that.
I'm not saying there's no room. I'm saying that there might be no room. I don't have enough information about the process to give you a definitive answer. I'm just trying to say that I fear, maybe not fear, but I warn that there might not be any room.
I think what we could say to the ZBA is that we recognize that we don't have an architect on the board right now, so we don't have a deep bench for advising on design. And if there's room to make changes in the design, we would like to have advisory help.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this and I think, but I don't know how to fix it.
I mean, I mean, it does harken back to an earlier age. It does share some of the.
Yeah, it's not all wrong. It's just, it's not very unified. I mean, I almost wonder if it'd be better if each of the rooftops were peaks, and it was a series of peaks. I don't mind the recessed balconies, but the recessed balconies and the choppy roof line, it's just it's a lot for the eye to grab.
I mean, maybe it's trying to break down the massing into pieces that are more easily digestible and not so monolithic.
I think looked at on the street, not in a drawing, it might read a little differently. You're not going to really see the roof. I understand what you're saying, but if you think about your perspective as you drive by or you're walking by, that roof is way up there. I don't think you're so much impacted by the change in the roof. I mean, it's not the design I look at it and I think it's fine. You know, it looks typical. I mean, it's kind of what you would expect. The recessed balconies and the bump outs, you know, is that probably a bedroom? You know, I mean,
Or a
you think
hallway, like a,
What page are we on this?
415.
The view of Swanton Street,
Okay.
east elevation, is a view that you'll never get that view straight on there.
no.
You might get that view from Washington Street if you're across the street looking right at the front. But the east elevation, the road's not that wide there, and you can't go into the people's yard too far on the other side of the road. So you're going to see the left half, and then the middle portion, and then the right half. I'm not opining on whether I like it or not. I'm just saying that I think that John's right, that some of these views are not views you're going to realistically get that elevation. I don't think, but
When you see that Swan Street view, I think about the closest I'd get to that would be rolling up to that intersection. No other cars are there, and I would see. We know what we'd see. You'd see, you know, sort of a 5/8 view. So you know.
yeah, but if you run down Park Ave, you'd get it.
Yeah, that's
those
right.
of us who run.
Till she can't anymore.
Yeah.
So, Taylor, I have a question about this whole process. We're going to be asked to give a recommendation to ZBA like we do on anything else. But is there really, this is a 40B, is it just a fait accompli by everything that's happened with the select board, with the RFP, with LDA, and with it being a 40B? Are we being asked to just say we like it? Can we actually have some meaningful change or meaningful discussion about this? Because otherwise, I don't want us to spend a lot of time on something that we can't actually impact in any way and just say at the end, you know, we want to say that we were involved so everybody can say the planning board, you know, was involved. But if we can't actually do anything, I don't know how much time we want to spend on it either.
Well, these are good questions, and I can listen for tomorrow night.
No, not.
Yeah, I agree with. I think that that's the right thing. I think that that's going to have to be a conversation with the ZBA, and I think if the planning board wants to have more, not necessarily say or authority, but like if the planning board wants to be more of a part of the process, then I think we need to ask for that. Because as of right now, if we don't ask for it, the board's not going to have it.
Right.
I think we could do a lot worse. It seems to incorporate a lot of elements, but it as Carrie said, yeah, we might want to discuss it, and we might want to have the help of a design consultant. But I'm just what I'm looking. I'm seeing some nice pediments and cornices, and
Yeah, it's not it's not like we look at it and we're like, whew, but I just don't.
Like
I-
the
it's not
design
my-
review committee says.
Yeah, design review will weigh in.
Yeah.
I think we should empower Jack not just to listen at the ZBA meeting, but to speak for us. I think we should figure out a way to sort of, you know,
That was what I was about to say. Is I cannot attend because we have a planning board meeting tomorrow night. Capital planning committee.
I was going to say news for me.
Capital planning. It's all planning. Lots of planning.
forum there, friend.
And I feel like it would be helpful, Jack, if there's a time when they ask for people from the audience, if you were willing to go up and point blank ask them what would they like from the planning board. We also have to decide what we want to do, but if they're not going to, if there's nothing to be changed, if it's just sort of they want a rubber stamp from us, we're not going to spend a lot of time. But if they're saying, yeah, we really do want your opinion on this, we do think there are changes that could be made, or changes is not the right word, impact that we could make by spending time on that, then we should definitely do that. This is an important parcel in town. We've spent $5 million on this land. We've spent 5 years in getting to the point where we are now. Like if we can have some impact, we should. But if we can't, we could just go about our business and do what we need to do otherwise.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's giving you direction. If that's just my opinion, giving you direction, sort of maybe not using those words, even though this is a public meeting, and saying what, how can we provide value
Yeah, we
to
should
them?
spend a lot of time knowing the project inside and out, though, because we are an important advisory board. The town is all eyes on this project, and we're gonna want to be able to,
That's a very good point.
you know,
Sure,
Yeah, we need to learn about it.
but we do need to learn about it. I just want to make sure if they're not.
I'll get the flavor of the room tomorrow night. It may be premature for us to even be asking questions like that, but if it's appropriate, I will ask the question.
if we can do a joint meeting.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Is there precedent for having a joint meeting?
Absolutely.
I don't recall ever seeing one with them, but that doesn't mean.
No, I think it's well within what's been done in the past.
It would be so much more efficient.
Having
In my tenure, the planning board, in my tenure with the historical commission, the planning board, we had joint meetings twice with them with historical commission, and I know the planning board had several joint meetings with the select board. I can't speak to the ZBA though.
That's what I meant with the ZBA. I know about joint meetings in general. I just I couldn't remember ever seeing a joint meeting with the
I don't
ZBA.
either, but you know, when David Feigenbaum was the chair of ZBA, we were trying to arrange a joint meeting with the historical commission. We just couldn't get everybody scheduled to mesh, and then he was no longer chair, and the idea died.
So
Well, I think it would be time efficient, and I think the town would like to see it.
I would agree.
So do I hear direction that I should be reaching out to the ZBA and trying to schedule such a joint meeting?
That would be the better way of going about it, rather than me raising it tomorrow night. Although I could allude to it.
I'm happy to make that request and see if we can make it happen. And
Sooner than later, I think, before this thing gets too far down the road.
agreed. That was really, I guess, another way of putting my question: is it already too far down the road?
I don't think so.
I mean,
Don't
this
think
is
so.
60 cars coming and going at the corner of Washington and Swanton. We need to be involved.
I tend to agree.
At least there's already a signal there. That's good.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I will work on that first thing tomorrow, and see if we can find a time to make that happen. My guess, well, we'll have to see how it works because they have to do everything. We'll see if that's something that's even that they even allow. I've not ever seen a joint meeting with the ZBA, so it's possible to say no, that's not possible, but I can reach out and try to find that out.
I believe that this meeting tomorrow night was presented as the first of many.
Yes.
So I think part of the meeting is probably going to be laying out some kind of a schedule.
Okay.
And maybe part of that schedule could be a joint meeting with the planning board.
Thank you for going tomorrow night. I
Sure.
really wanted to be able to attend, and I appreciate that you can do so.
Sure.
Do we have any? So I guess we won't know till tomorrow night. Do we have any timeline as far as when we think they're hoping to make a permit decision on this?
I haven't heard.
No.
No.
I'm so happy something's going to happen with that site. Just the town is going to be so relieved. What are we going to joke about on the town Facebook page?
There are plenty of things still, I'm sure.
If they put up a project board, I want it sponsored by CBS. I'm just putting it out there.
So Taylor, does that seem like that didn't answer your question? If they want a design
Carrie,
tomorrow night,
I think Carrie did a good job at expressing the opinion of careful attention to the design is necessary throughout the process, especially given that there aren't any architects on the planning board, nor are there architects on the ZBA. And options like outside consultant help or our very own design review committee should be utilized throughout the process to ensure that the design is consistent with the neighborhood and the broader community.
That was great. I just
I'll write that. You don't have to. I'll send that. You don't have to do it.
okay. But as far as reaching out, I can reach out to the chair about a potential joint meeting.
That's Dorothy.
I don't know whether they'll be receptive, but the only way to find out is to ask. So I will do that. And Taylor, if you could get back to them regarding that specific request, I think that would be very helpful.
Yep, will do.
Okay, so so anything further on that before we move on to additional business, which would be the last agenda item? No? Okay. Taylor, I know you had one item to discuss with the board.
In last November, there was a A&R submitted to the planning department of 19 Verplast. That A&R did not make it to the planning board because it did not comply with zoning. Because of that, the A&R was not accepted, and the owner of that property, the petitioner of that, has legally challenged that decision. So we will need to go to land court in order to figure that out. I do ask that if the board wants to discuss this, it should be done in executive session as recommended by town council, but it is something that the board should know. And if you have any questions about it, please email me individually.
Interesting.
Thank you very much. I will end any conversation on that, and if there are questions for Taylor, please send them to him. If there's a request for discussion about this, we can post an executive session as needed. And if we don't need to, we don't need to. So any other additional business?
Can I make a couple quick thoughts? We haven't done a post-town meeting sort of goal setting discussion for the next town meeting. Like, what are we up to besides managing incoming work? And I didn't know if we were planning to do that.
So that is a really good question and something I've been pondering. Taylor and I have talked about a number of things that not ready for prime time now, sort of discussions of things that we might want to be talking about. I feel like we could use I'm not sure what the right term is, a less formal, more, clearly a posted meeting, but where we just talk about, everybody can bring sort of items that they think are worth considering as we move forward, sort of a working session. And summertime is the perfect time for that because things suddenly quieted down. I mean, this is the first meeting since town meeting. So we haven't had a chance to really do that. And then this meeting, I thought tonight's meeting was going to be short. I told my wife it was going to be an hour and a half. So I failed there.
No, never make that promise.
I know. I feel really stupid now.
I never do.
So I think that's a great idea. I think it could use to be if not a standalone meeting, at a meeting that we're all in person and we have a fair amount of time to sort of talk about goal setting. And some of the things that we've sort of talked about for a long time, like site plan review, looking at the master plan, sort of deciding what we would like to be doing with that. I have some issues that I think are worth looking at as far as our zoning bylaw as far as when a variance is required versus when a special permit is required. I think it's from our last meeting, there were cases where it was very confusing what required a special permit and what required a variance. These are things that we should, I feel like if we sat around a table with not a lot of other agenda items, we could sort of come up with that and decide what do we want to tackle and what don't we want to tackle. And I'd be delighted to schedule an in-person meeting sometime this summer when we have some time and sort of work on that.
It
But
won't give us, the earlier the better if we want to get anything materially accomplished by fall town meeting.
I agree. It things that we would decide to start doing right now would realistically most likely be done by spring town meeting, not fall town meeting, given that anything we started doing this spring, which is almost summer, would have to be in bylaw form by mid-September, and it's mid-May. So that would be a tight timeline in best case scenario. But your point is well taken. Sooner is better than later. So
No, you're talking about doing this in one of our scheduled meetings, you're saying?
oh, well, if we have time, or scheduling a standalone meeting for
Okay.
just doing this sort of brainstorming, what direction do we want to go? I'm open to discussion. That does not have to be how it needs to be done. Everybody could make a list of what they think are the highest priorities. We could meet at our next meeting and simply hash through those lists and say, yeah, we all agree this is what we want to do. But it might be a more meaningful discussion if we don't just sort of start with each of our own lists and come up with an answer, but sort of work through it as far as what direction we want to go. I still think, I mean, I have a number of things in my head, and I'm sure you all do too. You all ran and got elected with certain stuff in mind. So
yeah, I mean, you're not talking necessarily about tangible things like zoning bylaw changes, although that should be included if somebody has a more broadly thinking where I'm going. I'm about things I'd like to see happen, and I can't really put my finger on it just yet. Just I talked about it, as you said, when I was running.
yeah, no, 100%. Just like I alluded to the confusion between when you need a special permit and when you need a variance. I'm not sure I know what we need to change, or if we need to change anything, or if it's just an interpretation. But certainly we've had enough confusion in the last couple of meetings of when a special permit is required, when a variance is required. I feel like it's something like that. But it's not like, I'm not saying you should come to said meeting with, I want to change 3.5.1 to say never instead of always, or something like that.
Exactly.
Of course, if you have that too, that'd be great too. But I don't know that
we may want to evolve that particular topic far enough so that we invite the town council to advise us.
I mean, for sure, if that's the direction we decide to go, we will certainly need town council help. If these things then extend to, okay, now we want to change a bylaw to affect a change that we'd like to see, 100%.
Yeah, I'm with you. Good idea.
No, Carrie, that's a great idea, and it's something that needs to happen. And thank you for bringing it up.
That screened-in porch is going to be ready.
Yeah,
Not in time. August, maybe. I'm optimistic.
It's too late. It's too late.
I know.
So I mean, so when Taylor and I meet next, we're going to talk about when to find the post-town meeting goal setting and sort of agenda, for the next term. So I think that's a great idea. It's something that we've been talking about already. Any other additional business at 9:24? Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for June something.
3rd.
June 3rd. Thank you. That will be.
Oh, is it 3rd? It's the. Yes, the 3rd.
June 3rd. That will be an in-person meeting. We just did all four of our ZBA petitions for June in May. So actually, we might find ourselves with time, although we will have be accepting a Main Street mixed-use district petition. we will not be, that will be primarily, Taylor, if I'm correct, we'll be accepting that, but we won't be doing a great deal of discussion at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it'll be an opportunity for you all to meet the developers and accept their proposal. And one thing, actually, I should remind all of you is that a new thing that we wrote into the MSMD is that a neighborhood meeting is required. And they'll have their neighborhood meeting on the 28th. I haven't seen that notice yet, but that's when they want to do it. Now, at some point, Brian, whether it's you or me or with the rest of the group, with the new zone, every step of this new application process, I'm learning something new, right? It's like, oh, that didn't work out the way that we intended, or that works better than the way that we intended, and I'm writing it all down. So the goal is that the next time someone applies, we can do a better job, make it more streamlined, do all this. We need to interface better with the building department. We need a better way for people to, we have an application and then they immediately go and do the same exact application in the building department portal. Is that necessary? Probably not. So it's like all these things that we're learning that I'm recording, and we'll get better every time. But in saying all of that, neighborhood meeting is new. I will let you all know when they have it, but I'll probably just let you know by email. And they're responsible for hosting it. I don't know if you remember that, but at the recommendation of town council, not to put it in the hands of the planning department, but put it in the hands of the developer. So they'll be hosting that meeting.
Tell me again which
So
property
we'll
it
see
is?
how it goes. What?
Tell me again which property it is?
972 Main.
Oh, yeah.
That's where Meineke Muffler is.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay.
Boop, boop.
That sounds exciting.
Somebody
It
had
sounds
a
like
false.
it can only be an improvement.
Yeah, somebody had a false start there a few years ago that got nixed.
It's your very own John Cortez's.
Very
Is that
exciting.
right? I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And Mark Baum was your attorney.
That's right.
I remember that.
You were the only one who liked it.
The Historical Commission were the only ones that liked it. That's right.
You said, looks great, give me a cornice. We said, great, go for it. Done.
That's right.
I wrote it down, cornice.
That's great.
So we might, so the long and the short of that whole conversation is we might actually have a lot of time at our next meeting because we've just knocked out all of our ZBA petitions for next month. This will take some time, obviously, but it won't be a very, very long discussion, I don't believe. And we may or may not be talking about Washington and Swanton. So we might be able to talk about some goal setting at that time. Is what the reason I brought that all up. So
That's great.
okay.
Do we need to do July 1st? Do we have a meeting?
Let's see. July 1st. We have a meeting scheduled. Yes.
Okay, I can't make that one. So just as a heads up, in case anyone else is out of town for the holiday.
I can't make it either. I can't make it.
Interesting. Oh,
there's a chance that might be a
yeah,
problem.
I'll have to see. I'll have to see.
Now,
We can address it at the next meeting, but I figured I'd get it out there in case something like this happens.
Thank you for reminding me. I'm out too.
I plan my vacations around the scheduled planning board meetings, and I expect all of the members to do the same.
Direct chair for the moment, Brian.
Like my Portugal trip, I planned it before I was on the board.
We're still holding it against you though, Jack, just for the record.
we will certainly work around the summer. Everybody's going to take time off over the summertime, presumably. We can, first of all, I'm not saying that people should take a meeting on vacation, but first of all, any meeting that's in the summertime could be flexed to be remote if we needed to. And second of all, we can bump them around as needed, move them from week to week if we need to with enough notice. The only trick will be anyone that is a public hearing will want to make sure we can
I know what you're saying.
We continue a public hearing to a date certain, but that date certain actually has to happen when that happens. So if we continued one to July 1, we would be.
And I really need at least 3 weeks to schedule, at least 3 weeks to schedule a public hearing. I would like
Yeah.
4.
Yes. I thought it was 4. I thought it was 4.
Yeah, I mean, I can squeeze it in if I work really hard to get it done in 3, but I'd like 4.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
well,
let's
6
give you
weeks
4.
from now, I can't be at the meetings. Just a heads up.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call. Jack,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Nick,
aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, WinCam. Thank you, Maura, our last. Well, nope, now she's gone too. Thank you, everyone, and good night. Appreciate it.
Night.
There. Good night.
Good night.